Stylish timepieces or overpriced junk? In this video, I'll be giving my full review on movement watches. MVMT movement watches are some of the most highly advertised on social media. Loads of big social media superstars recommend them. They've got a huge Facebook following. They are seemingly everywhere. Movement's big selling point is that you can get what is apparently a luxury watch at an affordable price. As you'll know if you've been following my channel for a while, I've unboxed movement watches in the past and taken a look at them. And many of you have asked me to do a full review on this product, and I haven't felt prepared until now. I'm not someone who likes to try a product for 3 days and then do a review on it. But I've had plenty of time and experience with these products, and really there isn't very many decent reviews out there. Most of the reviews that I found for movement watches online are one of two things. Number one, a person who only owns movement watches and therefore has nothing to compare them against and gives them an automatic good review. Or number two, paid reviews. Reviews that are sponsored by movement watches themselves. And as you know, this is something that I absolutely detest. You can't rely on these reviews because they're not reviews. This review isn't sponsored by movement watches, and I own several other watches from other brands that I can compare against. So today I'll be going over what I like and what I dislike about movement watches, and also whether or not I'd actually recommend them. Okay, let's cut straight to the chase. What do I think of movement watches? From my experiences with 3 of their watches, I think they are okay, but I find them to be hit or miss. So what factors have gone into me making this conclusion? Let's cover the straps first of all. Now all 3 that I own are leather straps, and if I'm being honest, the straps are poor. These watches retail typically from at the very lowest £70, but normally between about £90 UK and £110. And for that price, I would expect a relatively decent strap that is at least usable for more than a couple of months. Unfortunately, the quality of the leather straps used by movement watches doesn't live up to those expectations. I've worn these 3 watches probably a handful of times each, and even after such limited use, these straps look knackered. All the leather straps that movement watches use are made of genuine leather, which as a whole is a low grade quality of leather. But even compared against other genuine leather watch straps such as the ones used by Paul Rich, which I compared the movement watches against a while ago, they are just way worse. For some reason they are extremely dry. So dry to the extent that I felt the need to try and nourish them with some leather moisturizer, and that still hasn't worked. With some types of leather products, like different types of leather boots and shoes for instance, they can start to age and actually look better over time. But in my experiences with the movement watches, they just look ruined. The light tan strap has just ended up looking incredibly grimy for some reason. The one on the revolver watch has started to fade really badly in the areas where pressure is applied. It's almost as if the top layer is just eroding away really fast. The one that's lasted the best is probably the tan leather strap on the rose gold watch, but even that has got a lot of strong markings around the holes. And obviously, you know, any watch with a leather strap is going to get some markings after a while, but this is more than I've ever had with another watch. And people will say, you know, those watch straps are disposable and interchangeable, it doesn't matter. But really, when you're spending this much on a watch, you know, you don't want to have to lug on another £20 worth of straps on top of that. These should come with better quality straps that are actually usable. From what I can tell, pretty much all the movement watches are a Japanese quartz movement, which is a battery powered watch. It's typically representative of a lower quality of watch. But in all truth, I'm actually, you know, a fan of quartz watches as a whole, but we've got to be seeing what we're actually getting as a whole for our money here. The main thing that I've noticed really, especially with having watches from 2 different ranges, is the chasm of difference between the different ranges. In terms of the quality of the face and the housing, they're just leagues apart. The first 2 watches I received from Movement are part of the 40 series, and from what I can tell looking at the website, this is representative of most of the Movement watches. Similar sort of materials to the Chrono watches as well. And although I was initially relatively impressed for the price point, after having felt them in my hands, you know, for the past few months and wore them and that, I really have been disappointed by these. I feel like with these ranges, the watches that you're getting are equivalent to like a $20 Chinese watch. The metal, barely even feels like metal. The glass barely even feels like glass. They've got very little weight to them. They just don't feel like the quality that you would expect for that price point. The faces on these watches are the incredibly generic minimalist design, and you can find almost exact clones of these for a third of the price. And in fact, those clones are probably of equal quality to this. I would love to see the markup that Movement make on these watches, because it must be humongous. It just seems that a large portion of the materials that have gone into these ranges are of the lowest possible quality. And they look a hell of a lot better on the website than they actually do in person. But then you compare that to their newer Revolver range, and although the strap sucks, which I've already pointed out, the actual watch housing and the feeling of the materials in this are just so much better, it's confusing. I'm not saying that these are top quality materials that have gone into this watch, but this is certainly more in line with what you'd expect compared to the regular watches that they offer. This just feels like Lego, whereas the glass on this actually feels more like glass. The housing is just infinitely better. It no longer feels like it's made of plastic, and it's also got a much more unique face that doesn't look like something that's just one of a million Chinese minimalist watches. And the problem with this is the brand consistency is very poor. You could purchase a watch like the Revolver one from the Movement range and think, oh, I like this watch, even though the strap's a bit rubbish, I actually like the watch as a whole. I want to buy another one from this company, so you order another one, it arrives, and you'll be disappointed. I want to break it down really into the recommended watches that I would go for on the Movement website, and then those that I'd avoid. From my research, there seems to be really two watches that have a better build quality than the rest of the ones that Movement offer. And that is the Revolver, which is one of the ones I've got, and also the Voyager. The reason that I'm recommending these is because they actually seem to be built with slightly better quality materials, and they've got a much more unique design than the remainder of those on the Movement website. Whereas the rest of them, including like the Classic and the 40mm series, as well as the chronograph watches that they make, all seem to be made out of the cheapest materials possible. The chronograph watches that they make, in my opinion, are just ugly anyway, and they're not even real functional chronographs because they don't have any of the markings on. And then really for the rest of them, you can get watches that are made of the exact same stuff really, may potentially even have a better strap for significantly less elsewhere. For watches like these, you've really got two choices. If you want a watch that's the same quality as this for really cheap, then there are many places to go like Alibaba, where you can get stuff shipped directly from China for less than $20 or about £15. Because honestly, this hasn't cost more than a couple of pounds to make. Or for slightly less or equal amount of money to this, you can get watches that are significantly higher quality. And if you're someone that likes automatic watches, you can even get a small selection of automatic watches that come at a similar price to these. Movement watches overall as a company, I think, focus on two things. They focus, number one, on the aesthetics of the watches, which loads of people seem to like, despite the fact that lots of their watches, you can get similar watches or identical watches elsewhere for a lot cheaper, just without the Movement logo on. The second thing that they love is marketing. And this is the thing really, guys. I tend to prefer companies that focus primarily on the quality of their goods and then marketing as like a second point, not the opposite way around. It almost feels like with Movement, the best thing about a Movement watch is the fact that it's got a Movement logo on, or the fact that you are joining this movement. They're probably the best in the fashion watch industry at hyping up their products, and all credit to them, it seems to be working. Loads of people are buying them, but despite this hype factor, despite the fact that they focus on aesthetics, I don't really feel the lust to come home and to put on my Movement watch. There's no excitement there, and part of that is because I know that deep down I could probably get a clone of one of these watches for a fraction of the price that's actually the same quality. You've got other companies like Timex and Citizen where you can get much more value for money. And even compared to other watch brands such as Paul Rich, which are by no means the highest quality watches, I much prefer looking forward to wearing this one, because for the same price the build quality is still quite a bit better. And although they don't claim to have this huge focus on aesthetics, I much prefer the look of the Paul Rich watch as well. In the description of this video, I'm going to leave a selection of much better alternatives, in my opinion, to the majority of the movement watches, from brands that are going to give you higher build quality for a lower cost and also the minimalist design. And I'll also put in, watches at a couple of different price points depending on what you want. So really, what are my closing thoughts on movement watches as a whole? I'd say that if you really want a movement watch and you don't want to be disappointed, you probably need to go for one of the two ranges I recommended. The Revolver series, or if you've got a slightly bigger wrist, then the Voyager series. But for the rest of them, do I think they're amazingly stylish and versatile and worth the money? No. And this all comes back really to their sort of tagline. You can get, affordable watches that look great. And really, do they fulfill that purpose and that promise? In my opinion, not really, because there are alternatives out there that are more affordable that look better. And to call these luxury is just a joke. They're made using really low quality materials that are in no way a luxury product. And I also hate the fact that, you've got other creators that really are pushing these watches on their audiences, saying they're great, loads of paid reviews and stuff like that. I just think that's a bit scummy, and it's not something that I particularly like. I've never actually had a movement watch break on me like what other people have said in forums online and stuff, but despite this, they're still not up there with any of my favourite watches. Hopefully you found this review useful, honest, maybe it'll help you to make your decision about whether you want to buy a movement watch or not. Apart from them sending me a couple of products to include on videos like this one, I've got no affiliations with the company either. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you press the like button. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on movement watches and other watch brands a bit like it. And if you want to see similar, honest, truthful videos just like this one, make sure you press the subscribe button and also the bell icon next to it as well, so that YouTube tells you every time I upload a video about men's hair and style. And I will see you in the next one.